Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Time to Draw with Mr. Shaw. Today, we're going to be drawing one of my favorite Pokemon, a very under-celebrated Pokemon, the grass-type Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur is pretty easy to draw, so we're going to follow along step by step. As always, all you'll really need is a piece of paper or something to draw on, a pencil, pen, crayon, or marker, something to draw with. As you're following along, if you get stuck, if you need to stop, start over, erase something, you can pause the video, you can rewind if you miss something. And as always, if you have any questions, you can put them down in the comments or you can message me on Class Dojo if you're a Henry Johnson scholar. So let's get started with Bulbasaur. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw his head here in the middle of the paper. And the shape of his head is almost like a diamond shape with a curved top. So I'm going to draw this curved top first. And then I'm going to have two fairly straight lines coming out diagonally to the two sides and then curving down into a pointed chin like this. It's kind of a strange shape, almost looks like a pentagon, like home base if you play baseball or softball, but it's a little curved at the top here. Then we're going to draw in his two triangle-shaped ears. He has a pointy one coming up pretty much from the side of his head right here. And then another pointy triangle, a little smaller in the back here. Kind of looks like Batman at first, but I promise he'll look like a Pokemon in a minute. After that, we're going to draw his two triangle-shaped eyes. Now, they're pretty big, so I'm going to very lightly sketch in my first triangle over here on the right side of his head. If I like the shape of it, I'm going to go ahead and darken that in a little bit. Inside of his eye, I'm going to draw a nice big oval with a smaller oval inside of that. Then I'm going to move to his second eye. It's another triangle shape. This one I'm going to make a little smaller because it's a little further away from us. And I'm going to draw an oval in pretty much the same position as the first one. And it looks like Bulbasaur's looking off to the side a little bit here. Now, we're going to start drawing his mouth. And as we draw his mouth, we're going to want to draw the top part of his mouth to a little point like this. It's going to look kind of like an angle here, an obtuse angle for those of you in 4th grade who have been studying geometry. So go ahead and draw that top, that kind of pointed angle like this. And then we're going to do a nice curved smile around the side, connecting those 2 points. After that, we can give him 2 little nostrils so he can breathe. And we're going to give him 2 pointy little teeth inside of his mouth. Now, I'm not sure why Bulbasaur has, I'm coloring in this corner here so we can see his tongue. I'm going to color this corner. I'm not sure why Bulbasaur has pointed teeth. Maybe he's a meat eater. Maybe he bites into vegetables like the famous rabbit Banuncula, if you've ever read that book. Now once I have his head and his mouth and his ears kind of blocked in, if you want to color your Bulbasaur later, his eyes are red, his body's mostly green and blue. I'm only using a pencil, so I'm going to lightly shade in his eyes a little bit. If you're only working with a pencil today, you might want to do the same thing. Bulbasaur is giving me kind of a dead-eyed stare here, so I want to color that in. I think it'll make him look a little bit cuter. I think that helps a little bit. Always feel free to erase any stray marks you have while you're working. You'll see me always kind of fiddling with the edges of things. But now we're going to move on to his body. I'm just going to put in some little eyebrows here. Now, for the most part, his body is kind of an oval shape coming off the back of his head here. So I'm just going to lightly trace in an oval. Now, it looks like kind of a small body, and that's pretty small for right now, but we're going to add his legs, and then we're going to add the bulb on his back, kind of like a flower bulb that gives him his name. But first, I want to sketch in his legs. So I want his legs to be roughly oval shapes coming down. We're going to have the first one coming down from the side of his head here. Now, since the leg is in front of the body, I'm going to erase this line from his stomach where his leg overlaps that. And then I'm going to give him 3 little toes. 1, 2, 3. Just little ovals for his toes. Just going to fiddle with his eyes a little bit more here. All right. Then I'm going to do his other leg. I'm going to draw another little oval. This one, I'm not going to be able to see all of it because it's behind his head and his body. And I'm going to give it 3 little toes going off to the side. And then back here, I'm going to give him another oval shape for his leg. I'm going to make this one a little bigger. I want his hind legs to be a little thicker, his front legs a little thinner. I'm going to give him 3 little toes, and I'm going to erase this line from his body. Now he looks pretty silly right now, so we're going to add that big bulb on his back, a bulbous bulb, if you will. And to do that, I'm going to lightly sketch in almost like a circular shape coming from the side of his head all the way down to his back. And at the top of that, I'm going to have this little sprout, just some little wiggly lines coming out of the top. And then I'm going to darken in the edges of that. And that's the first piece of his bulb. Then I'm going to copy that same shape. I'm going to mimic it just off to the side here a little bit. And I'm going to end it right before I get to this little floof at the top, those little petals or that leaf or whatever that is. I'm going to draw some little lines at the bottom here to make it look like it's growing out from his back. Then I'm going to add one more curved line coming up into that bulb, just curving it around. Now it looks like a Bulbasaur. Now, excuse me, in the video games and in the cartoons, Bulbasaur also has a pattern of little, they almost look like squares, kind of lumpy shapes around his body. So I'm just going to draw those in. Again, I'm going to use my pencil to lightly shade those. If you want to color your Bulbasaur later on with colored pencils, most of his body is kind of a light greenish bluish color. These spots are kind of a darker green. This bulb would be a nice bright, almost like a Kelly green if you have a crayon called that. So I'm just going to do some of these lumpy shapes. I'm going to do a couple on his legs. I'll have some bigger ones, some smaller ones, some medium-sized ones. I'm going to do a couple more here and here. Then I think I'm going to do a couple on his head. I'm going to have one big one on his forehead. I'm going to color that in lightly. And then I'm going to put in a couple of smaller ones, almost like freckles. So there's my Bulbasaur. He looks pretty cute. Looks right out of my Pokemon video game. But I have a lot of empty negative space here, and there's a lot of things that we can do with that. I could draw a setting. I could draw some other Pokemon we might learn how to draw later. But today I want to try something out really cool. I want to make kind of a patterned background. So coming out of Bulbasaur's little bulb here, I'm just going to draw a long curved spiral, almost like a vine growing out of that. I'm going to do another one on the other side here. And then I can maybe do a little tiny one in the middle. Now, coming out from those big spirals, I'm going to draw another spiral coming down here. And I'm going to continue those spirals going in different directions. I can make them different sizes. I can have small ones. I can have a big spiral to fill up some of this space. And I'm going to continue that until I get about halfway around my page. I'm covering up a lot of this negative space. That's what we call the empty paper around what it is you're drawing. Usually if there's nothing there, it's the negative space. Or if we fill it up with a pattern like this, we would still refer to it as the negative space. So I'm about halfway through here. I'll do one more spiral on this side. And then I'm going to go back to my left-hand spiral here. And I'm going to start adding some spirals growing out from this one, almost like vines growing out from a plant, one of those climbing plants that go up the side of trees or the sides of buildings. And I'm going to keep spiraling this out, a bunch of spirals of different sizes. I have some big ones. I'm going to throw in a little guy here, maybe a little tiny one up here in the corner. I don't want them to touch my Bulbasaur. They're going to kind of frame him. They're going to make a pattern all the way around. Now that looks kind of nice, but it doesn't look a lot like a plant yet. So now I'm going to start working my way around the picture, and I'm just going to add little leaves. So anytime I add a leaf shape, I'm going to do a curved line followed by another curved line, and I'm going to make sure those corners touch. And I'm going to draw a line down the middle, and 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 little diagonal lines, and then the mirror image of that on the other side of my line. And it looks like a little leaf. So I'm going to draw another leaf shape, a curved line with a point and a curved line with a point. Another line right down the middle, bisecting that leaf in half. And then I'm going to draw 3 or 4 little diagonal lines, and then I'm going to reflect them. I'm going to make the mirror image. And I'm going to do those leaves here and there all around my picture. I can do as many or as little leaves as I want. I could do 2 or 3 or 4. I could do 10. I could do 55. You can put a couple thousand in there if you make them small enough and you have the time to do it. So I'm going to draw just a few more leaves around my picture here. Now while I'm finishing this up, Don't forget that you can, if you're a Henry Johnson Charter School scholar, take a photograph of your drawing, send it to me on Class Dojo, and I'll try to put it up in one of my future videos. Another way to submit that is through the portfolio in your Class Dojo portfolios. Or if you're just watching this on YouTube, feel free to comment in the comment section. Let me know something else you'd like to learn how to draw, and I'll try to do that in the coming weeks. As always, take care of yourselves out there. Be safe, wash your hands, and I'll see you next time.